there is a growing segment of women 45 between like 45, 60 plus who are deeply unhappy and feel like they can't do anything about it. And the question is, how did we get here? And this is an entire generation of women, Gen X women. How did we get here? Last week I shared some of what I learned after posting 100 days in a row on YouTube. I shared my learnings and I talked about algorithms and statistics and views and subscribers and becoming monetized. I talked about sort of like the business side of things that I learned from the experience. But what I've learned more was about you, the viewer, the audience. And that I keep, I keep thinking about it and ruminating about it. And I've really started peeling back the layers of what's been going on. Why has this particular thing happened? And has it happened to generations of women before us and they just weren't vocal about it and didn't share about it or not? I don't know. All I know is that we are just starting to talk about it, which is a wonderful thing. So I'm gonna sort of walk you through the history and a little bit of what I learned about what I think are contributing factors to why we are feeling this way. Why are we unhappy, exhausted, burnt out, and feeling stuck and feeling overwhelmed and feeling like there is no way out, that there's no options. First, what I've noticed from your response, from your feedback, is you are not alone. Like I said, this is a growing segment of women that this is happening to, just based on the volume of comments, messages, shared stories. I've been on social media for a really long time, and I've talked about a lot of different things. But once I started talking about Gen X women being burnt out and quietly checking out, that struck a nerve. And that is when I started hearing from more of you than I've ever heard from before. I've gotten more private messages and public comments, and there's absolutely a common threads to what I'm hearing. I'm hearing about exhaustion. I'm hearing about feeling stuck. I'm hearing about feeling like there's no off ramp. It's like, I want to take care of this problem, but I don't have time. I don't even have time to face this problem. So I just need to keep going and ignoring it. So this isn't an isolated situation. This isn't just something that is happening to a random few of us. It is a pattern that is growing. So I've started to step back, prompted and inspired by many of the perspectives and comments that have been shared with me, and just also doing some additional work myself, looking at it. But let's turn the clock back a little bit. Let's talk about when we were little girls and we were growing up in the late 70s, in the 80s. And the message that we received was, you can have it all. You've come a long way, baby, according to the Virginia Slims commercial of the day. And, you can bring them the bacon, fry it up in a pan, and never, never let you forget you're a man. The Angele commercial, remember that from the 70s? So we've had that message from when we were little girls, and there was a lot of excitement around it. There was a lot of hope about the future, that we could now have independence, autonomy, opportunity. There are a lot of things that happened culturally in our society at that time. We got financial rights. We were finally able to get our own credit card in the late 70s and able to get a business loan. I don't know exactly when that happened, but I think that was late 70s, early 80s. We finally had access to the birth control pill, which opened up doors, and legalizing abortion. So it opened up opportunities and choice that women had. And the future felt wide open, full of possibility. And I think, looking back on it through my lens now, as a grown-up, as an adult, as a little girl, I bet that our elders, the generations ahead of us, our older sisters, our aunts, our mothers, were so excited about that for us. That some of the struggles that they were going to have were not going to be there for us. We had options. We were not going to be completely dependent on somebody else. We weren't going to devote ourselves to our marriage our whole life and be miserable about it because we had no other way to support ourselves. Like those types of things were not going to happen to us. And so our elders, I'm sure, were thrilled about that and feeling pretty darn good about what the path ahead. And we were going to take that on and take on that torch and carry it forward. I know I felt that way. I know I felt like, yeah, I'm going to do it all. I'm going to have it all. And so that's what the majority of us did. But the way we did it, the way most of us did it, so most of us still followed the traditional path. We still kept all of the traditional roles of marriage, of being a wife, of being a mother, taking care of kids, of managing a household and taking care of the house and all of the things that have to do with that, and managing a family and keeping track of everything for everybody. So most of us still took that on as we got into adulthood. Those that didn't were shamed about it, and pressure was put on us to make sure you're doing those things. Don't let those things go. And if you do let those things go, you are less than. So while the majority was going and still taking on those roles, those of us, the 10, 20% of us that weren't, were being made to regret it every step of the way. I know I was actively trying to get on that path and get on that route. So that was happening as we were going into our early adult years. But this time for us, we were able to add to that. We went the career route. We wanted to have a job, a career. We wanted to be, have our own financial freedom. We had ambition. And so we definitely jumped on that train, and we approached careers the way men were taught to, like with full commitment, full intensity, no margin, no boundaries, it just that we had to compete and be aggressive and climb the ladder. Like even that metaphor, the visual of it just sounds strenuous, right? You're climbing a ladder, slowly to try to reach that career. So we were adding that to it. Meanwhile, so then what happened is there was a hidden tension that was happening, women against women, because we had the doors all open to us, all these different paths that we could take, and yet we started fighting amongst ourselves. We started shaming each other, stay-at-home moms versus working moms, and then married women versus single women. Judgment going back and forth on both sides. And, stay-at-home women were sort of shamed into it, that they were wasting this whole new opportunities that we were blessed with. And then working women, at the same time, working women were shamed because they weren't parenting their kids well enough, or that they were deemed selfish and self-centered, or if they chose to not have kids, if they made that choice, shame with that. And it wasn't, we can't put that all on the men, because it was women against women doing that. Men had their perspectives and their biases as well. But when I'm talking about the system, I'm talking about the patriarchy, I'm talking about it on a systemic level. I'm not talking about man versus woman or individuals, the whole system and the way it's set up. And that system was originated by men, but supported by women and championed by women as well. And So when I mentioned that in this video here, I'm talking about the whole system. So we had these arguments going up against each other at the same time as we were trying to fulfill our careers. There were limited seats for women. The further up you go, the more limited the seats were. So it became very cutthroat and competitive between women. It in many cases became toxic as opposed to a collaboration. We were not set up to work together. We were not set up to join forces and support each other. Yes, there were pockets of that, and from what I can tell, it really was kind of based on the industry too. So there are pockets of women helping women and women empowering women, but there were definitely more cases of competing, and in some cases pushing another woman down in order to claim that rare spot for yourself. So that was happening. And instead of the system seeing the lay of the land and figuring out that something needed to change, we just kind of let that happen. Just let them keep fighting amongst themselves. That's actually a good thing, because that'll keep the numbers limited, right? So we had decades of that. Decades of carrying an invisible load, kids, partners, and then start to add on aging parents and careers, always being the one to hold it together, always being the one taking care of everyone else. Even those of us that are solo with no kids, we still were conditioned to put ourselves last as much as possible. You better put your work first, your employees first, your team first, your boss first, other people, your family first. So no matter what, we were still putting everybody first. We had decades of doing this. We had minimal rest, minimal pause. We certainly weren't taking sabbaticals. We weren't taking time out and healing and resting and taking care of ourselves. We just kept going. We just kept, marching forward and striving and grinding and hustling. And then everything started to get harder. Then we start to lay in what's happening in the external world. So think about the last 6-10 years. So you layer in the global pandemic and everything that did, the amount of additional stress, the amount of additional workload, additional challenge that added, and you add to that the political climate in this country and worldwide, the division getting worse and worse and more combative, and social media, the rise of social media, what that did was amplify the problems, amplify the stress, amplify the feelings of inaccuracy, the comparison piece. It sped up the ability of the system to be able to condition us to think and feel a certain way because of the messages that we were getting bombarded with at that point. We were managing more and more. Tons of information overload. And add on to that for our generation, that is about the time that we, Gen X women, were in perimenopause and approaching menopause, and also weren't warned about that and had very little to no information about that. I literally went through menopause a little over 10 years ago, went through perimenopause at that time, heard nothing about it. I wasn't hearing anything about the symptoms that I was having. I just thought it was a part of getting older, I guess, and just kept powering through, as most of us did. So we're dealing with all of these biological internal things physical things happening at the same time that the outer world is becoming chaos, and at the same time that the societal evolution of our role was getting heavier, not lighter, heavier. We're managing more. We had shifts in energy, shifts in emotion, and our capacity was just dwindling. And of course, burnout was going to happen. So, like, fast forward to now, in the last few years, burnout is widespread. You know, if you Google it anywhere, and search for it as a hashtag on any platform, you're going to see massive amounts of people talking about burnout. But stopping and resting doesn't seem like an option because of financial pressure, because our retirement is not secure yet, our retirement savings, and because we feel guilty about stepping back from anything. We were given the blessing, right? We were given the blessing of you can have it all. Here is an entire plate of wonderful things that you can have. How dare you say no to some of it? How dare you not appreciate the blessing that you have, whether that be this career, the education that you got, or the family that you have. So that's why I feel like so many women in this age group, we just keep pushing forward, and we just keep hoping and praying that the relief is going to come someday. And a lot of us have our eye on that retirement, finish line, and hoping that the relief comes then. Maybe it will. But for many of us, that's far in the future. Now I'm going to talk about something that may ruffle some feathers. And I actually recorded this once before, and I'm re-recording it because I realize I have to dial down my emotion on this part, because we're getting a lot of backlash as a result of the experience that we're having right now. What we're hearing, the narrative that we're hearing back, whether that's on the national stage, whether it's on social media, whether it's in my tiny little YouTube channel. So my tiny little YouTube channel is a good sort of example of what we're getting on the wider stage. I'm getting comments from men, like, when we're talking about burnout, when we're talking about this experience, I had men comment, well, yeah, okay, you're burnt out. Men have always been dealing with this. This has been our reality forever. Or, this is what happens when you try to have it all. You're the ones that wanted to have it all. You're the ones that wanted to work. You're the ones that wanted to, have equal opportunity. And okay, I dialed down the emotion, but my sarcasm is coming through loud and clear. I don't have to tell vast majority of my audience is women. I don't have to tell you that it's not an equivocal thing, because women haven't let go. Women have held on to all of their previous roles and then added on more on top of that. So our role has expanded and our load has been added to and not taken away from. And this line of thinking is very dangerous. I'm sure you've started to see some of the more extreme thinkers out there that are basically saying that the source of all of our problems is women. And because of the rights that we've got, and that because we're back into the workforce, feminism specifically is the problem. So instead of the system, the patriarchy, or this, realizing that the system needs to change, that, okay, now if the system could ask itself, how do we help support this portion of our population? A big portion of our population is in pain and struggling? And do we need to readjust expectations and messaging and roles and who's doing what and how we work together? Do we need to adjust that in order to make things better and in order to evolve to that next level? Instead, what's happening is the thought process is, okay, now that we've given this portion of the population, by the way, the majority of the population, right? Aren't we like a little over 50%? But anyway, what we're doing is once we gave them more rights, more equality, once we gave them the opportunity to get into the workforce, once we gave them the option to decide when and if they want to procreate and be a mother, like once we gave them more choices and options and directions that they could possibly go, all of these terrible things have happened. Look how unhappy they are as a result of that. Look at what's happened to divorce rates. Look what's happened to our family. Darn, those women are awful. And maybe we should just go back to how it was before. Maybe they should come out of the workplace. Maybe we should take away some of those rights. And then maybe everything will be all nice and dandy at that point. So we're blaming the women. So in other words, in order to give all members of society equality, we need to take away, like in order to give everybody equality, that's actually going to be detrimental to society. And instead of trying to figure out what are the solutions or how do we fix it, let's just blame that portion of the population that was previously oppressed, still oppressed to a point, but who's gained more rights. Let's look at them because it's really their fault that this is all going wrong. It's got nothing to do with the fact that the rest of the population has not been able to handle it. We haven't adjusted the expectations of men. We haven't educated our young boys on how to function in good, happy, healthy relationships and what that looks like. We haven't tried to support family and children and careers. We haven't tried to do that on any kind of systemic level. The easiest thing to do would be to just knee-jerk react and let's just yank it back. Let's just go back to putting them where they were before. And let me tell you, it was not great before. Our mothers, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, they wanted us to have options. That's all we've wanted. We've only wanted to have choices. We don't want to have it all. We don't expect to have it all at the same time. We just want to have choices and options the same way as other segments of the opportunity. So the other segments of the population. This isn't our failure as women. This is a failure of structure and support. The real issue is our systems are outdated and that we have one model of success that's very masculine and linear and all-consuming. There are other ways to be able to be successful and thrive in a career environment, in a business environment. Women do not need to do it the way men have been doing it. Having us try to do it the way men have been doing it is what's led to this problem. We need more ways to work and earn and live. We need to redefine success, redefine productivity, redefine like what our options are. We need systems that support real life, systems that will enable us to grow and evolve. This is a key turning point for us. We could either make some major mistakes and try to turn back the clock and try to go backwards in our evolution and becoming equal, or we can reassess this system and figure out what we need to do. Like, there are other ways to do this. We haven't necessarily been shown them. We need to figure it out. There are people out there that have been discovering new ways and have innovative thoughts and solutions to take us to that next level, we need to start amplifying those voices and stop with the battle between women, bet the battle between the feminists and the trad wives, which is just like the latest version of, the stay-at-home moms versus the working moms that started in the 80s. All I can say is that if this is resonating with you, I'd love to hear from you. I would love to hear what's resonating. I would also love to hear what you don't agree with, or you might have an alternate perspective on. I have repeatedly had my perspective adjusted after interacting with many of you. But think about it. This is why I talk about pre-retirement. This is why I do the work that I do. This is why I've been working with Gen X women to how do we design pre-retirement, the 10 to 15 years before we're ready to retire? How do we design a life where we're happy now? In spite of what's happening with the system right now, I mean, I think if we can work person to person and work with ourselves, that ultimately we can come together and influence the overall system. But if this is resonating, check out permission number 2 pause.today. You'll see my on-demand workshop experience with an accompanying journal that will help you with that. And I have started to conduct some private sessions with many of you, which is just opening my eyes even more to what we need and to the paths we have to go forward. But leave your name or leave your comments below. Would love to hear from you. My name is Amy Palmer. I am your Gen X big sister signing out.